Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome, dear students of second year MBBS, BDS, and second year DPT. We are starting problem based learning and multiple choice question discussion for you as a part of online training as directed by Vardi Vice Chancellor Professor Khalid Masood Gondar. Our topic of discussion is pituitary gland. The normal online lectures will continue as previous practice. The aim of this discussion is to train our students regarding problem-based questioning, clinical aspects of studying physiology, how to explain the pathophysiology of different symptoms, what clinical problems will arise if normal pituitary function is disturbed, how you will solve multiple choice questions regarding pituitary gland. I will start my discussion with a clinical problem, that is a 30 years old lady visits medical specialist complaining of headache, profuse sweating, amenorrhea, and joint pains associated with changes in the size of her hands and feet. The patient reports massive growth of her hands and feet, as well as protrusion of her lower jaw. She came in specially because of her worry that her husband and she are also trying to conceive and have been unsuccessful. She also complains of sudden weakness even when just carrying the clothes hamper upstairs. Physical examination reveals marked enlargement of facial features as well as tongue, feet, and hands. Blood pressure is also noted to be high. Thyroid enlargement is also present. Ultrasound study reveals fatty liver. Laboratory tests reveal high blood glucose levels. MRI shows pituitary tumor. The first discussion question is, what is your most likely diagnosis? What is the cause of increasing size of hands and feet, increased blood glucose level, and fatty liver in this lady? What is the reason of failure to conceive in this lady? What other blood tests you will order to confirm your diagnosis? The patient's initial complaints, if we discuss about the diagnosis, the patient's initial complaints centers around growth axis, especially of cartilage and soft tissues of body. The first thing that comes in our mind is regarding diagnosis is gigantism. The second diagnosis that comes in our mind is acromegaly. The third, as thyroid enlargement is present, so there is some problem in the thyroid gland. First, we will discuss the gigantism. The size of hands and feet, if increased before puberty, will indicate gigantism. As the age of patient is above 30, so the gigantism is not our diagnosis. Then the second thing is thyroid gland issue. The thyroid gland, it deals with the BMR along with other metabolic aspects, but not the thyroid gland is related to the size of hands and feet, and in the same way the lower jaw. Next remains the our most probable diagnosis, that is acromegaly. Our diagnosis is this one because growth is a complex process requiring many hormones in a permissive role, especially growth hormone and somatomedin C, also called insulin-like growth factor. The next is, what is the cause of increasing size of hands and feet, increasing blood glucose level, and fatty liver? This we will discuss in the next slide. As we mentioned in the previous slide, that our most likely diagnosis is acromegaly. That is, it occurs due to increased production of growth hormone. The growth hormone overproduction is generally caused by pituitary adenoma. The growth of pituitary tumors can result in visual field defects like bitemporal hemianopia because of the location of pituitary gland immediately posterior to optic chiasma. Compression of surrounding brain tissue can also cause compression of surrounding brain tissue can also cause headache in such patients as is mentioned in the clinical scenario. The next is, what is the cause of increasing size of hand and feet? If we discuss about the size of hand, feet and protrusion of lower jaw, for this we will discuss GIT overproduction before puberty and after puberty. The GIT production before puberty leads to gigantism because growth of bones process occurs before closure of epiphyseal plates in the long bones. Growth hormone production after puberty only affects the cartilage and soft tissues of the body. This is the reason that in this patient, size of tongue and lower jaw is increased. Regarding blood glucose levels, that blood glucose levels are increased in this patient. The growth hormone increases blood glucose levels by stimulating lipolysis. So this action spares glucose utilization as cellular fuel. Secondly, growth hormone causes glycogen breakdown in liver and muscle that increases blood glucose levels. Thirdly, growth hormone inhibits insulin dependent uptake of glucose by the skeletal muscles and other insulin sensitive tissues. Now, this action that it enables insulin dependent uptake of glucose by the skeletal muscles. This shifts the metabolic fuel to free fatty acids. So this increases lipolysis. This increases lipolysis and large amount of free fatty acids are released into the circulation. Because liver causes excess production of acetic acid, and this is called ketogenic effect of excess growth hormone production, and this leads to fatty liver in patients with acromegaly. The reason of this couple to conceive failure to conceive is amenorrhea. Is amenorrhea, and amenorrhea in this patient is consequence of impaired FSH and luteinizing hormone release, and due to this couple fails to conceive. For the confirmation of diagnosis, what other blood test you will order to confirm your diagnosis? The growth hormone levels vary throughout the day, and consequently a single growth hormone level or test will not confirm the diagnosis. For this, we perform glucose. For this, we perform glucose test. For this, challenge test. In glucose challenge test, glucose ingestion normally inhibits growth hormone secretion. Glucose ingestion normally inhibits growth hormone secretion. So glucose challenge testing can be used to identify the abnormal regulation of glucose growth hormone. For this, the high glucose level in spite of high growth hormone level in spite of glucose ingestion, it confirms your diagnosis. The second clinical scenario is a 30 years old female complains to her gynecologist of amenorrhea and milk discharge from her nipples. The patient suffered a motorbike accident 3 months ago. Injuries were mostly superficial, but the impact was sufficient to break her helmet. The patient indicated that she just has not felt right since the accident. She is constantly tried and has gained 7 kg weight. Another important feature in this lady, she reported that she drinks and urinates more than before. Physical examination reveals blood pressure 96 by 60, pulse 84 by 54 per minute, respiratory rate 15 per minute. Lab results reveal low levels of FSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, T3, T4, and ACTH, but high levels of prolactin. The norm pregnancy test is also negative in this patient. The discussion questions in this clinical scenario are: what is your most likely diagnosis? On the basis of lab tests, low levels of FSH, LH, TSH, T3, T4, adrenocorticotropin hormone, all these indicates that something has happened in the hypothalamus and between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, because there is suppression of all these levels, and these levels clearly indicate that there is some damage either in the hypothalamus or in the connection between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, that is the pituitary stalk that contains the blood vessels and the neurons that connect hypothalamus with the pituitary gland. On the basis of this, our most likely diagnosis is pan hypo. Pituitarism. The second question is, what is the pathophysiological logic of such symptoms and impaired lab results? What is the treatment of such disorder? The last two questions we will discuss in the next slide. The patient exhibits a variety of symptoms involving the reproductive axis, that is amenorrhea, milk discharge from her nipples, cardiovascular abnormalities, that cardiovascular and renal abnormalities, that she drinks and urinates more than normal. In most cases, the symptoms reflects a diminished end organ response. So we can say that all these symptoms are resulting from some poor response of end organ, and as the level indicates, this end organ in this case is pituitary gland. This grouping of symptoms is characteristic of damage to the pituitary stalk that separates pituitary from the hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus is connected with the anterior pituitary with the help of hypothalamic hypophyseal portal blood vessels. So this is anterior pituitary. And this one is posterior pituitary gland. And the posterior pituitary gland is connected with the hypothalamus with the help of neurons. The pituitary gland is a mixed, as the diagram indicates, the pituitary gland is a mixed neuronal and endocrine structure that is connected to the hypothalamus by the hypophyseal stalk. The posterior pituitary, it secretes antidiuretic hormone and oxytocin by the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus. Then these two hormones, antidiuretic hormone and the oxytocin. They are transported down by the exoplasmic transport along the neurons into the posterior pituitary, where they are stored. The anterior pituitary secretes anterior pituitary secretes six very important hormones. Number one, ACTH, that is adrenocorticotropic hormone. Number two, follicular stimulating hormone. Number three, luteinizing hormone. Number four, growth hormone. Number five, thyroid stimulating hormone. And number six, prolactin. These six hormones are secreted from the anterior pituitary in response to some releasing factors from the hypothalamus. And these releasing factors from the hypothalamus basically regulates the production of six anterior pituitary hormones. For ACTH production, the hypothalamus produces corticotropin releasing hormone. For FSH and LH production, the hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormone. For growth hormone, hypothalamus secretes two hormones, that are growth hormone releasing hormone and growth hormone inhibitory hormone. And this growth hormone inhibitory hormone is also called somatostatin. For TSH release, hypothalamus secretes thyroid releasing hormone. For the control of prolactin secretion, hypothalamus secretes prolactin inhibitory hormone, also called dopamine. This prolactin inhibitory hormone basically inhibits the production of prolactin. So if there is any damage to the hypothalamus or the hypophyseal hypothalamic portal blood vessels, then the prolactin level will increase as the prolactin inhibitory hormone. It will not be secreted. The second question is, what is the pathophysiological logic of such symptoms and impaired lab results? The reason is that the problem is present in the hypothalamo-hypophyseal stalk and neuronal cell bodies. The damage occurred to these structures. The head trauma disrupt the pituitary stalk, damaging the portal blood vessels that carry hypothalamic releasing hormones to the anterior pituitary. This is the reason that there is decreased production of all these hormones and increased production of prolactin in this patient. The patient currently is experiencing symptoms of prolactin excess. So, as a result of increased prolactin secretion, secondly, the patient is experiencing these symptoms due to deficiency of luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone. The symptoms of ACTH, less production, are not present in this patient, are not evident in this patient. The third question is, what is the reason of increased level of prolactin levels in this patient? As we mentioned, hypothalamus releases prolactin inhibitory hormone that inhibits or controls release of prolactin from anterior pituitary. So when the connection between the anterior pituitary and hypothalamus is damaged, the prolactin inhibitory hormone, it will not produce effects, and its effect is to control production of the prolactin. So due to this, suppression of prolactin by anterior pituitary will not occur and its level will increase. The treatment of such condition is to restore end organ hormones by giving their replacement in the form of thyroid hormone, estrogen, and cortisol to such patients. The second part of this discussion are the multiple choice questions, and these questions are based on the best correct or best suitable option. The first MCQ is Levi-Loraine dwarfism occurs due to congenital deficiency of insulin, somatomedin C, growth hormone, somatostatin, corticotropin releasing hormone. We will discuss each option one by one. If we discuss about the insulin, insulin controls blood sugar levels and is required for the growth promoting actions of growth hormone. So this is not the correct option. The second option is somatomedin C. This is called insulin-like growth factor. It is secreted by the liver under influence of growth hormone, and this IGF somatomedin C is required for the growth as the growth effects of growth hormone results from somatomedin C results from somatomedin, also called IGF, rather than direct effect of growth hormone on bones. So this option seems closer to our answer. The congenital deficiency of growth hormone, it leads to pan hypo pituitary type of dwarfism. Somatostatin is growth hormone inhibitory hormone secreted by the hypothalamus. So this is not the true option. The corticotropin releasing hormone, it promotes release of ACTH. So on the basis of this discussion, the correct option is B, because the deficiency of somatomedin C, it leads to a type of dwarfism that is called Levi-Loraine dwarfism. The second MCQ is growth hormone secretion is inhibited by starvation, somatostatins, exercise, excitement, trauma. Starvation increases growth hormone secretion. In the same manner, exercise also increases growth hormone secretion. And same is true about excitement. It also increases growth hormone secretion. In the same manner, trauma also increases growth hormone secretion. The option 2, that is somatostatins. These are called growth hormone, inhibitory hormone secreted by hypothalamus. So we can say that the somatostatin inhibits growth hormone secretion. So the correct answer is B, or option number 2. This is the correct option. The third MCQ is level 3 MCQ, and this MCQ states that a group of investigators destroyed a significant portion of the hypothalamus in a laboratory animal. The level of substance that most likely raised as a result of this experiment is thyroxine, antidiuretic hormone, cortisol, prolactin, somatomedin, C. The correct option is option number 4, that is prolactin. While thyroxine, option number 1 is incorrect, option number 2 is incorrect, option number 3 is incorrect, and option number 5 is not correct. The reason is that thyroxine, if a significant portion of hypothalamus is damaged, the level of thyroxine will decrease because thyroid releasing hormone will not be secreted. In the same manner, the antidiuretic hormone, it is released by posterior pituitary, and is secreted by hypothalamus. So its level will decrease as a significant portion of hypothalamus is destroyed. In the same manner, the cortisol hormone is released under influence of CRH, that is a releasing factor released by the hypothalamus. So the level of cortisol will decrease in this condition. The somatomedin C, its level will not be, its level will be decreased because it is secreted under influence of growth hormone. As the hypothalamus is damaged, so the level of growth hormone will decrease. so is the level of somatomedin C will also be decreased. So the correct option is prolactin. Why it is correct? Because when hypothalamus is damaged, the prolactin inhibitory hormone will not be secreted from hypothalamus, as it inhibits the secretion of prolactin. So when it is not released, the level of prolactin will increase. The next MCQ is about the growth hormone. That growth hormone exerts many of its effect on growth by stimulating production of somatomedins. This is correct option because the somatomedins, especially somatomedin C, is produced by the liver under influence of growth hormone. The second option, inhibits protein synthesis, is not correct because growth hormone causes protein synthesis. The third option, decreases lipolysis, is also incorrect because growth hormone promotes lipolysis. The fourth option, increases glycolysis, is incorrect because growth hormone causes glycogenolysis, not glycolysis. And the fifth option, enhances glucose transport into muscle cells, is also incorrect because growth hormone inhibits the transport of glucose into muscle cells for energy purpose. So the option number 1 is correct option.